Good morning, everyone. My name's Matt Nichol, and some of you will be aware that over this weekend there has been an announcement from myself that I am stepping back and resigning from my position as the Place Board chairman. I did this on Saturday morning, and I have been very appreciative of the support that I have seen, and also well aware of the questions being raised now following my reasoning, but also the project that it was because of. I know Wychavon are hopefully now going to share the final designs, which was a request that I made in my resignation letter, but also they have a duty, I think, too, because it is a distance away from what was publicly consulted back in December 2024. Now you can see from the time in the bottom right corner of my screen that this is Tuesday the 5th and it's 10:30. At this point, I do not know that Wychavon have shared their designs, and I will not share this video until they have shared their designs. And the reason for that is I do feel that it's theirs to promote, if that's the way they want to address it. It's their prerogative to put it forward in the light that they will choose to. But I want to give you the background that can take someone who has been very passionate for the town and working alongside some amazing members in the Place Board to get to this position where there is no way but for me to resign from that role. My resignation was something that I had discussed with Place Board members, and I proposed it first in February this year when we were not being listened to and being ignored for a project that we had originally spent a large portion of our UK Share Prosperity Fund to do the feasibility study, engaged with all the right people, Friends of Droitwich Spa, Lido, Wychavon Leisure, SOBs, and also it's not to be forgotten that the expertise that we have within our team. Tim Kirkham spent 30 years working for Wychavon Leisure. He worked at the Lido in years gone by and has a very good understanding of the building, the setup, and how that place runs. Tori Brittell, she has ran leisure centres, leisure clubs for big businesses. I won't name every single one of them, but they all have their own expertise in areas that would have assisted with this. So I've paused for a long time on this screen because I want to give you an idea of how it began. And this is the image that Councillor Richard Morris shared on Bank Holiday Monday, with a red circle on one of the areas, which I'll discuss today as well, because the scheme that we came forward with back in December 2024, there was three options. Option one didn't include brine at all. And brine was something that through our conversation with SOBs, knowing that they had been trying to get brine baths back into a number of places, including the original brine baths, and also then later the Raven as part of their the owner's planning application, we realised that that planning application probably wasn't going to come to bear. And so we consulted with them and shared our ideas to get a brine bath into this scheme. This scheme was designed, as it was mentioned in the prospectus, to drive nighttime economy and make use of the jewel of the town, the Lido being the jewel of the town, the open air Lido pool being one of the unique offerings throughout the UK. There are not many of these, but we had a lot of things that we could have pulled together in one location. And that was from the prospectus seen, and the whole driver for us all the way through. Nighttime economy would be positive for the area, more tourism into the location, a facility for our local residents. Brine itself obviously has its own benefits for people that are trying to rehabilitate or people that have skin problems. There's lots of benefits, and it was one of the reasons Droitwich Spa became the town that we know and love now for the history that it used to have. So this scheme, as you can see on my screen, shows an extended Lido building on either side, and the part that's circled is this section here. Now during this, as I go through the different designs, none of this is something that should sound like sour grapes or anything like that. There shouldn't be any kind of vibe that I'm not in favour of this idea of spending £12.5 million on this project. But I think, as you'll see, it has been steered away from what it was designed to do in the first place. Now, firstly, this was on the first design that we took out in December 2024. We sat in the Lido, we did a public consultation for 4 weeks, over 860, I think it was 865 specifically, fed back on that public consultation, which is an amazing result. People in person came to see the designs, and these are the designs I'll walk you through firstly. Now, after that point, and the reason this cafe cannot be where it was designed on here is because if you know the Lido well, there are some fairly significant trees, some of them still showing on this design, that take up this corner. Say it's a corner, but this edge of the curtilage from the Lido. And so working with One Creative, it was deemed that it would not be possible for a cafe to be located there. That's understandable. But what's not understandable is how this scheme got changed from having a cafe in the south corner or out to the south of the Lido to sacrifice a number of things that the project needs. This is a big investment. It's going to deliver on so many different levels, and the increase in footfall is going to be significant. Now, to answer the question about the car park improvements, there's a restriction in terms of how much can be done with car parks. Originally, there are 107 spaces, and with the improvements, there'll be 118. I know that doesn't sound great, but unfortunately, due to the layout and obviously not wishing to lose green open space, there is very little that could be done. The approach to the Lido is very well thought through. It's been designed and landscaped correctly. We have no fears or concerns over that. It will be impressive as you drive up to the Lido. And our hope is that obviously this is going to bring residents to the Lido itself, many of whom I hope can walk. Not everyone will need to take the car, and perhaps the parking will be more for tourism and for people coming into the area, and their experience of being able to park and use it and being able to see Harriet's Pool on the way up to the Lido is a big critical part. So if I can just show you firstly, essentially the ground floor layout of the scheme, because this shows also that the changing rooms were considered within the design as well. Now, initially, if I'm very honest with you, the scheme options 1, 2, and 3 didn't have, as part of the feasibility study, enough effort or energy spent on the changing rooms. We realised that if you're going to do this, you do need to improve those changing rooms. And so when the budget was discussed, it was put to Wychavon that also that needs to be considered, that the changing rooms need a significant improvement, significant upgrade, not just a tarting up, they need improving. Don't need to be extended. Space-wise, they're pretty good, but it was more the use of the space and how they are presented. And that was agreed. Just to show you kind of what we've been battling all the way through, this was one of the earlier schemes that we looked at. And as the Place Board, we were very aware that we didn't want to waste taxpayers' money. And so a lot of our efforts, when we were talking to people like Wychavon Leisure, were to value engineer the scheme, to not spend money in areas that we didn't need to, and to try and drive the costs down to make sure that we could get everything that we were after. I'm using this image just to show you where that cafe was designed to be. Many of you will know the change rooms as they sit and where the cafe was designed to be. And things like these heated pools and plunge pools and fountains and seating steps. We spoke to Wychavon Leisure and asked them openly, is this something that we need? We have a Lido pool that everyone wants to use. We're having a brine bath added into the indoor area. Do we really need plunge pools? Do we need heated pools outside? And what's the running impact of those? What's the cost? How much would we have to charge people coming in? All of these points were considered. And as a result, we did away with some of these items. So things like heated pools, not needed. Over-engineered splash areas, not needed. Plunge pools, fountains, not needed. Which gave us this scheme, which you can see, if you ignore the south corner here with the cafe, gave a very, very low level water experience for children to go and paddle in, splash in. Bearing in mind, we knew that this the free splash pad, free to use splash pad was about to be worked on. This was December 2024 where we concluded to get to this design. And you can imagine in those months and the years actually leading up to that, the 18 months that we've been leading up to it, we were working on the basis that we knew a free to use splash pad was coming. So we were really happy with this. There was no major changes to the Lido pool itself. We wanted there to be plenty of space for people who were obviously coming in, to have space to be able to lie down, sit on chairs, whatever it might be, to be able to use that. And as I said, this low level splash area, trickling water, just things that kids could have a little bit of a paddle in. I think it shows our experience and our expertise when we came to bringing these ideas to the table. We were not trying to say, let's spend every bit of money we can. We were trying to do this on the best budget we could to make sure it's a success, which is one of the reasons you'll sense from us that there is a significant amount of frustration now with what has been tabled, which I'm going to show you in a moment. And the reason I'm going to show you in a moment is because I feel that the public need to see it. Hopefully by now, Wychavon have shared it. But if they have shared it with their own points, I'd like you to know the other side to each of those points. So this was the scheme that you were shown in December as option 3. This is the scheme that got the public's opinion and got the public vote. If I start with the eastern side of the Lido building, currently the building sits up to here. So it was going to have an extension on the ground floor. It was also going to have a slight extension above on the first floor, which would have benefited the building with, as part of it, the 60 to 80 cover bistro restaurant. Now, I am going to talk about the bistro restaurant as well, because there's a number of things that we as a group have, I'd say, not given up on, but we have taken a step back from the original ideas. And the reason we've done that is because, again, we want this project to be a success. Nighttime economy is an important thing. We wanted this to be destination led. We wanted it to be a food operator that was going to bring people to the area. However, since December 2024, do we feel that there is as much confidence in that type of market now? Possibly not. And that's one of the reasons we have, as one of the areas, compromised. And we've listened to what Wychavon have said. This isn't us digging our heels in and stamping our feet. Despite some of the comments I've seen, this is not the way that we operate. We are business-like people. We want the future security of the Lido to be there. And so there are a number of items that we have been willing to compromise on. But if I continue with the design that you were all consulted on, it had steam room, therapy room, salt therapy room, holistic therapy kind of seating area, refreshment area, a large number of toilets, suitable for and cubicles, and changing for the facility, and toilets. A new entrance, which is an extension again. So this is an extension here from probably about here across. This links up then to where the cafe sits currently. The cafe was due to have a brine pool. I consulted with SOBS, and we went to the council chambers in Droitwich, and I'd marked up on the floor in advance before they sat down with tape in the corners to show how big this brine bath was going to be. And it was a very proud moment for me to hear from them that they feel that it was suitable size for what they've been looking for. It's not the biggest, it could have been bigger, but they did say it's not to be called a brine experience, it's to be called a brine pool. We did all of this leading up to December 2024. We wanted to make sure all of these things fell into place first, because it was very important to us that we were doing this as a group, as a collective, and everyone had their say, everyone had their input, everyone got what they wanted from this project. At the point, we were told there was a £5 million budget for this scheme. And when it went to public consultation, the design that you see in front of you here, with a few tweaks, but the design that you see in front of you here was costed in then at 8 million. So we knew that that was not going to be an easy one for Wychavon to come up with the funds for. However, we hoped, because there was a Droitwich Leisure Centre project that was supposed to be done costing 25 million. Costs on that had escalated. Wychavon came out to say they could no longer do the project because it had gone from 25 million to 36 million. And so instead, they were going to scale it back, and they were going to do some alterations to include a learner pool being added, a better food offering, and something else. Now, these are interesting points because this happened a number of years ago, but it feels like history repeating itself. To let you know, the same team that have done the Droitwich Spa Leisure Centre are going to be the same team on this project. And we have been told that that is a government led procurement issue. Wychavon haven't said it's an issue. I'm saying it's an issue, but they have said it's because they are the only ones on the group or on the panel that are able to do these schemes. The issue I feel is that the group that have been chosen have not been involved in nighttime economy. They have done cafes, they've done leisure centres. That is their forte, and you'll see their name shortly as I kind of go through this presentation. But they've not been involved in a project like this from a health spa point of view, from what this should have offered. And I feel, and you'll see, that they have steered this off into a different direction, along with Wychavon project officers. It has lost its original route of travel. And unfortunately now, despite lots of efforts, there is no backing up from that decision that's been made, that position that's been taken. There's no one coming back to say, we have gone off target. And that's why I hope this public consultation for you to see the design is going to get the light of day so that we can go back through this. So brine, we got brine. We had suitable shower facilities, changing facilities, toilets, so that if someone came in and they were just using the brine experience, which people do, we've been to Nirvana Spa with sobs, we've been invited across to there to experience what it feels like, what you do, how long you can go in the water for, and all those things. That was set up correctly. We think you'd probably get about 8 people in. You can be in for 20 minutes at a time. It's not massive, but it's an experience. And if you needed brine, it would be a very, very nice experience for you. Changing, we felt we solved. We had the lift going upstairs to the first floor, and the bistro restaurant was there. Big kitchen, enough facilities, and a beautiful place for someone to come and do a food offering. Now, I'm sorry if this is clunky as I move around, but I want to show you kind of what was discussed. So the primary objectives for the study, for us to do what we did, was extend operational hours and the months, because we didn't want it to just be a summer months or spring summer months operation. We want to generate greater revenue because there is the likelihood or the safety of Wychavon leisure that we wanted to consider. We wanted to consider and preserve the Lido itself. We didn't want it to go into a position where it wasn't getting enough funding to be able to continue to work and run. We wanted to reimagine this first floor space. This is the first floor of the Art Deco building. And obviously then improvements for the Lido arrival and entrance. And as we've said, the parking was another part of it. This was the driver. These were the plans that were shared. This is what we stood in the library back in December 2024 to discuss. Where it then changed is after that consultation. The consultation was hugely positive. Let me show you what Wychavon said themselves about the option. The preferred option was option 3. Like I've just shown you, it's going to cost an estimated £8 million, they said. It would deliver better access. It would have the wing extensions. It would have the brine experience and a new cafe. So a new cafe would be created at the south end of the site. Bear in mind, I've just shown you the one where it was located had issues with trees, but they did say that the only one, the preferred option, would be with a cafe, a new cafe at the south end of the site. Of course, they would upgrade the surrounding area of the Lido itself. And if I go back to they went on to say it's the only one that allows us to fully meet the vision of Droitwich Spa Town Centre investment prospectus. Keep that in mind when we come to the new design. It's got the support of the relevant stakeholders in creating an inspiring yet practical development. Again, something we need to go back to. And the new purpose-built cafe, whilst it couldn't be there, but a new purpose-built cafe at the bottom will improve the customer experience, and the restaurant will create opportunities for it to operate later into the evening, adding to the town's nighttime economy. I have seen a post recently that says the only thing that's not being delivered is the cafe in the south, and the fact that the brine's being moved from this side to this side. That isn't the case. There is far more to it than that. And you'll see as we go through what those differences are. So the consultation was done December 2024. We then, as the place board, didn't have any further contact from Wychavon or the project officers until November 2025. So 11 months passed. And in those 11 months, they worked on a scheme away from what was consulted, away from what had been agreed, and unbeknownst to us, had disinstructed Gleeds, who had been involved in the project with our feasibility study, and introduced Alliance Leisure. Alliance Leisure are unknown to us. They are, as we've said, the government group, not group, but they are the company that the government have on their procurement list, which meant that Wychavon were able to choose them. But I don't understand how the scheme has been taken from something that was going to cost 8 million and moved up to something that's going to cost 12.5 million, when the design, as you'll see in a moment, has gone backwards. We consulted with everyone because we didn't want to put a scheme out there that was not going to work. We wanted the layout to be correct. Our meeting in November 2025 was when a representative from Wychavon District Council came to the place board with their design, and they shared with us their layouts. It was immediate reaction from us to say that the layout was not suitable. And the reason it wasn't suitable, as you'll see in a moment, was that it just did not flow correctly. Our concern is that despite us having a public consultation and us all looking for something that's going to drive nighttime economy, bring buying back, move the cafe down to the south, that changed somehow. And so this is the first thing that I think during those 11 months was a concern, or turns out to be a concern, that this scheme had been taken from an economic-led driver, nighttime economy, bringing what Droitwich, the 26,000 residents wanted to one place, and it changed into a leisure scheme. Alliance Leisure, you can see mentioned here, said that their brief was to replace the current splash pad, plant and pool surround, refurbish the changing rooms, correct. Then they have that it was to refurbish the existing cafe. That was not part of the public consultation. The existing cafe was to be turned into a brine baths with its own washing facility, showers, toilets, cubicles. That's what the public consultation was putting out. Improve the landscape in the external areas surrounding the pool and pedestrian entrance. Creating a new entrance to the Lido. Convert the ground floor into a large brine experience. Heat treatments and therapy rooms. This, I think, is where they started to change the design. On the first floor, they said, let's change the bistro restaurant, 60 to 80 cover bistro restaurant. They said no, that was not what they were asking for. It was on the first floor, convert the current kitchen into changing rooms for the spa, create a yoga studio, and create a small high-end cafe restaurant for spa users. Those were not what we were told. Those were not what we were consulted on. That is not what we, as the place board, had spent 2 years working on, and that is a complete deviation from the brief. There is no good explanation that the Wychavon District Council and Alliance and Leisure took it off in this direction. And you'll see the project that they ended up with, we fought hammer and tongs to get changed. Now, the version you will be seeing, if you've not seen it already yet, will be an adapted version. And that's based on us pushing back on a number of points. They have listened to us in a number of areas, and we're pleased that they have, because otherwise the scheme that you were going to get left with, I'll show you in a second. So this was not the public consultation feedback, yet this is what has been put out by them. We do want refurbishment to the changing facilities, and I commented there that they were previously omitted from the scheme, but they were going to be considered. Likely to be VE'd is not a positive. That's value engineered. So that is somewhere that costs were going to be tried to be saved in their public in their feedback of their public consultation. That's what they think. Moving the brine experience close to the main building, that didn't come out in public consultation either. It was obviously planned to be in the cafe, but it didn't help with the way that they wanted to design it, so they've changed the wording to try and make it suit. reuse the existing cafe and improve the takeaway provision from the Lido. That, again, did not come out of the public consultation. I have every single bit of feedback from the public consultation, and with that many people giving feedback, as you can imagine, you'd have to have a hefty amount of people saying that cafe needs to stay exactly where it is and let's just refurb it. There was also no description of providing more leisure facilities on the upper floor, and this has just been something that they have tweaked to their own needs. But again, this is one of those areas that we did back down on, and we have said we will, for the benefit of the project to make it happen, agree to a smaller bistro than a 60 to 80 cover restaurant. Now, a smaller bistro, as you can imagine, is not going to be a nighttime economy driver. Unfortunately, that is one of those things that we've had to back down on. But with the limits of the building, we realised that you couldn't have everything that needs to happen in that place without giving up on something. So whilst it was unfortunate, that I think was a business decision that is correct. But there was no feedback to say that we wanted more leisure facilities on the floor. There was nothing there to say that we wanted to reuse the existing cafe, other than perhaps the operators that are there themselves, because it does feel like this has been driven by the operators in situ, as opposed to for the public that voted this to be put forward. So this is the scheme that we were shown. And I'll leave it on my screen for a little while to help for you to see it. If we begin with the first floor, If we begin with the first floor, so this was supposed to be a 60 to 80 cover bistro restaurant originally. The design that Wychavon and Alliance Leisure came to us with in November 2025 was a small restaurant, probably doing about 20 covers, a yoga studio or studio overlooking the water, and then changing facilities. The kitchen would service the restaurant. The studio would be for, no doubt, Wychavon Leisure to hire out or do classes from, and the changing rooms. And this is where this whole process begins to fall down, because for 11 months we were excluded from any conversations about this scheme as they worked up these designs. And let me just walk you through the flow of this building based on this design. If you were coming in to use the brine experience, which is on the ground floor, now moved from where Little Owl's Cafe is to the east, like top of the building. If you're coming in to use the brine experience, you were to change on the first floor, walk through the lounge seating area, through the bistro, down the stairs, and to use the brine experience. After which, you'd then come back out of the brine experience, wet as you'd probably be, back up the stairs, back through the bistro, and back to your changing rooms. Consideration had not been given for the various types of people that would need to use this. People rehabilitating from injury, people that would not be able to get upstairs. You do have a lift. There is a lift that's designed in, but again, you'd have to come out the lift, into the change room, back into the lift, down, through here, round reception, up the corridor, into the brine experience, and then back again. 11 months were spent on this without any consultation with us. And so now local government reorganisation is being used as one of the main reasons that we have to push forward with these designs. Not this design, I'll show you in a minute. It's another design that this was where it was going to be before we really got involved, or we were asked to get involved, but where it's going to be is still not a positive. But 11 months have been spent on this, and I don't know how much money. And this goes back to our point that the expertise was not in the room. How could anyone have approved a design like this? The therapy. I'm back on the ground floor now. The brine experience is now in the eastern top of the building. Originally no design to include a hoist, no design to include showers, just cram whatever they could in. This front section here was to then be on the ground floor where the heat therapy and the treatment would be. Our original design had 3 treatment rooms. Our original design had 3 treatment rooms here, 1, 2, 3, and it had this downstairs here as the sauna and steam area, which would work because you had changing facilities. If people were coming in to use the spa itself, they would have the changing facilities off the hallway, which would then take them into the spa and sauna. And then further on, they'd have a little bit more there, which would be therapy rooms if they were going in for a treatment itself. This design, as we said, with changing rooms on the first floor and everything else on the ground floor, would not have worked. So thankfully, we were listened to. One thing we did like with this design was that there was a staff room made available for the staff, something we'd not considered, and we did respectfully said, yeah, completely get it, we need to have that staff room. These dark green areas cannot be changed. This is existing pump area, and I've been in those. They are significant. You couldn't change them. So we don't get a 60 to 80 cover bistro restaurant anymore. We get 20 covers. We don't have a flow that works. You'd have to get changed and come through eating areas to get down to use facilities, or come back out here from the changing, round, down into reception, past reception in your dressing gown to go to the therapy areas. And my other big concern at the same time was this is going to have a significant amount of money spent on it, yet all they were going to do was refurbish the existing cafe. And in refurbishing the existing cafe, the footprint was not going to grow, and the covers weren't going to grow either. I've been in there a number of times. It's a fantastic place. It's hugely popular. It's brilliant. But it is very, very often full. There's no space at all. So add to that a time of year when people are going to be using the Lido more than ever, or add to that an investment of this magnitude on this site, the existing cafe would not be suitable. It would not be the delivery of a project for the project that we were after, which is why, again, we'll go back to it again in a moment, the cafe needs to be moved to the south. Okay, I think you've understood. Thankfully, this was not the design that they ran with, but it shows you where we got to. 11 months, place board being excluded, no involvement at all. We were just brought, they came to one of our meetings to tell us this is the route they were going. Our feedback was clear that firstly, we should not have been excluded. We needed to be involved, and we wanted to have another meeting with the project officers and also Alliance Leisure to allow us to feedback on this design. The work that then went into that was a document that we put together. I'm just going to bring it up now. The document that we brought to our meeting on the 25th of November spelt it out. It gave feedback on what had happened to this point and where it had got to date. And in this meeting, when we attended, we sat down to collectively go through what was the approved scheme, but what the new scheme looked like. We left this document with them. We gave feedback to show everything that had been said, including Wychavon's own communications and promotion about a scheme that was changing away from the original. For this meeting, attended by place project officers, they attended with an agenda with about 4 bullet points on it. We had a lot more to discuss than just 4 bullet points. This is where we wanted to really dig into the detail. We needed to get to the bottom of what had gone on and why this scheme was deviating so far away from the project and the plan. Now, I have my concern about a company being engaged with on the UK Leisure Framework who are the only company on the UK leisure framework. In business, there is nothing there to ensure cost effectiveness. There's nothing there to drive down costs, because projects will get paid for anyway, and a percentage of that project will get paid to the company that are on that UK leisure framework. There's no competitive process. And that's where I think that this begins to have its own issues, that a price can go from 8 million to 12.5 million pounds. And I would ask that there is scrutiny on these costs. Whether this project's going to change back to what it should be now, I don't know. And I feel probably that it won't, which is why I got to the point of needing to raise the awareness with the public, and also needing to step away from a project and also the Place Board, because Place Board were instructed or brought in to help advise Wychavon District Council, but at the senior level, they won't listen. They won't communicate. They will not involve you. So November 2025, we were shown this design. We had a meeting then on the 25th of November 2025 to voice our concerns. In voicing our concerns, we managed to have some influence on some of the communication. We asked that, therefore, if the cafe could not be on the south corner of the project, that it could be placed on the redundant splash pad. We have been given every single possible bit of negative feedback to that idea, and many of which we don't believe have been substantiated, haven't been checked, and no work has been done for them. The first one was that we couldn't, because the utilities weren't down there for it, or that it would cost too much to get utilities down there for it. Now, I found three images back from 1955, when at that end of the Lido, and I'm sure people watching this will remember, but when at that end of the Lido, there used to be 3 diving boards, the changing rooms, shower facilities, and toilets, everything down there. Now, the cafe that we're talking about is essentially a cabin structure, similar to you see at Worcester Woods or at the Gruffalo Trail in Kidderminster or the Wyre Forest. A timber construction that would have more capacity for, I think it's currently about 55 covers it can do, capacity for 80 plus. Doesn't have to have the overhanging canopy, but something that people could be able to sit out at tables in front of the cafe, as opposed to having to be in. So on a good summer's day, they could be there. Its own toilet facilities, its own store, a larger kitchen, and better space for the staff. Because I've known on Good Fridays that they've run out of ice lollies before 11 o'clock in the morning. So there simply isn't enough storage in the current existing curtilage of what this cafe looks like. And I think that they really are going to miss a trick, that the popularity of that place would lead to a lot more revenue if it was the right size. What you'll find is people are going to be frustrated when they go in there, not be able to find a place to sit. And it will add pressure to the staff, and it will add pressure to people who are sat there trying to enjoy a conversation whilst other people are trying to come in and try and use the space. Now, as I said, we as a Place Board feel that we have some expertise, and within our group we have Tim Kirkham. I mentioned his name, been with us throughout from inception of the Place Board. Originally joined because he was working at Wychavon for Wychavon Leisure and was going to be involved in the leisure centre project, which obviously deviated and changed at some point at Wychavon's choice. Tim Kirkham knows the Lido inside out, having worked there for a large number of years, and other people that are within the Place Board also worked there previously as well as recreational assistants. We knew that the facilities are there. Instead, the design that came back from Alliance Leisure was for the cafe to stay in its current location and for a splash pad to be placed down on this south space. This, again, big concern for us, big flags, raising some big problems, because we've just had a free splash pad placed no more than 400 metres away from this, and people that are going to use the Lido are going to swim. If they want to go use the splash pad, they'll probably go to the splash pad as well on their day, but they're coming to use the Lido to swim. We had gone through the process. We did not want anything over-engineered. We didn't want anything over-designed, but the Place Board projects team came back with designs which included something like this. Now, on a project that was already going to cost 8 million, this shines a light on the problems that we were facing with this group. Designs of this type were going to cost £722,000 and added to the issue created with the costs of the project. Now, thankfully, we have been listened to, and this proposal that you'll see shortly will not include anything like that. It will still, however, cost a lot of money. We have not seen that the £722,000 that this was going to cost be removed from the price. It has essentially been moved into another area. Now, this is what the proposal was for the cafe. So this is option one as it stood. This is what they were going to go forward with up until maybe 2 weeks ago, when I pulled a meeting with some very, very key people, including some exec board members and the leader of Wychavon District Council, and told them in no uncertain terms I would be resigning from my position if they continued with designs. This was the design they were going to go with. That is no bigger. That is the same space that the cafe is currently. They have reimagined it, redesigned it, but it is essentially the same space. It was going to cost something like £89,000, a cost saving, no doubt, but at the sacrifice to other areas, which I'll show you in a moment. So that was going to be the cafe. The influence in design upstairs came from conversations we feel that have been had with the existing cafe operator. So during the meeting, it was discussed that the current Lido cafe operator would most likely run the proposed first floor dining space. That was not ever our plan. That was not ever what was sold to you as the public. You were never consulted to say, we're going to move the cafe operator upstairs to do a little bistro. You were told it was going to be operator-led, nighttime economy driver, and something that the public and people out there will come to. It was never designed to be an extension bistro to a cafe downstairs. That was never part of the plan. We have backed up on this point to say that a bistro instead of a full restaurant would get our support. We had to. We had no choice but to. And that doesn't come across easy for me to say, but with the cost of everything going up, we were worried that if we did put a 60 to 80 cover restaurant upstairs that was poorly supported, and I'm not saying that wouldn't be from the local public, but if there weren't enough people outside of Droitwich coming to use it, then that would be a negative to a scheme that actually has so many positives. So you'll see a new design in a moment. The ground floor with that cafe in situ was to include a sauna and a treatment room and a vitality pool. Now, we are remembering that we are trying to generate income for Wychavon Leisure. I have no issues with that. We want that business to thrive. We want that business to be able to invest in heating the Lido pool. We want that business to be able to survive good months, bad months, anything that gets thrown at it. And treatment rooms would form part of that. Now, anyone who's had a treatment will know that you have to have a certain amount of space for a treatment bed. You also need to have typically washing facilities and space for the person that's given the treatment to be able to operate. This design, option A or B, that have both been put forward, would end up with a very, very small spa offering, still changing rooms upstairs, which you'd have to come through the bistro to come down to use the brine and also the the spa area. And it would end up with one treatment room, which, as you can see, you couldn't even have a bed straight along in this room. Now, my own research has led me to find that you need to have a room that's going to be, I think it's 3 meters by 5 meters for a treatment room. And with the cafe moving to the south, there is a potential for the treatment rooms to still happen. 3 treatment rooms roughly should generate around £90,000 for Wychavon Leisure through rents. It will also add to the scheme because people coming for an experience of using the brine or coming to use the spa will be able to pay for treatments as well. This is what we want. These people will not just spend time at the Lido, they'll head off into Droitwich Town Centre. They'll come and use our high street. They'll come and use our shops. They'll come and use our businesses. They may even decide, if it's that good, that they'll come back and stay local to here, to spend more time here, visit the health corridor, spend time in the Lido, watch a game of cricket, go to the rugby club, support Droitwich Spa Football Club. But this scheme, this dumbed down scheme, has very, very small spa offering, one single treatment room, and a disjointed changing rooms on the first floor. I don't need to spend too much time on this because thankfully this was another thing that we managed to get changed, but it shows exactly what battles we've had since November when we were given the scheme that I'm showing you right now. 6 months have passed, and after a lot of back and forth, we are now with these final designs. Option 1 is the one that they feel they should be going forward with. It is likely to cost £12,382,000. Option 1 plus is similar to option 1 with a slightly more extended cafe, and that's going to cost £12,821,000. Our scheme, which we're very proud of, has somehow had an inflated price associated with it as well at £14,150,000. If you go back to the original design, we're adding single-storey extensions to the Art Deco building. We are refurbishing everything upstairs. We are adding in a brine swimming pool. We are adding in therapy rooms. We are building a cafe, which doesn't have to be breeze blocks. It could be whatever construction, onto a redundant splash pad, which is no longer in need where utilities already sit. Obviously, they're going to need refining and checking, but where utilities already sit. And we were going to add therapy rooms. This is where the argument we have sits with prices. And who is going to scrutinise these figures? Who is going to drill down on these figures? Because someone needs to. We cannot spend £12.5 million on the scheme I'm about to show you. We would be happy with them spending £12.5 million if the scheme offered and delivered everything that we wanted. We're comfortable with that number because we think the argument for the right scheme will do things for the town. It will be the experience that people expect. It will be something that we're very, very proud of, and it does make use of the jewel of the town. Anything else will not meet those levels. So as I said, 2 weeks ago, I called a meeting with some of the, I'd say senior team, not project officers because they won't meet with me, but I'd submitted a formal document. I'd submitted that formal challenge document to the project officers, to exec board, and also to Nigel Huddleston. And the document was set out to challenge the designs that we'd been shown, bring them back to the reason that we were doing this, and push to make sure the group that were in charge of this project would please listen to what the public were looking for. I was excluded from the project meeting because of my formal challenge document, so I was not able to discuss it with them, but I was able to get a meeting with One Creative and others. I won't name names, but I was able to get another meeting. So this is now the option that you are likely to have seen, and I'll give you my feedback as we walk through it. And then I'll show you the version that, well, they haven't designed it because they wouldn't give it the light of day, but I'll talk you through what we would have done and what we are proposing for the option that the town should support, the public should support, and we should be pushing back for. So the scheme has changed. It's changed in a number of areas. And I'll tell you all the positives, and I'll also list all of my concerns. So the cafe would stay in its same location, in their opinion. This is their option that they will be going for, unless they go for their option 1 plus, which I'll show you in a second. Cafe stays in the same place, but they extend it slightly to the front. This came out of our conversation that we had the other day, not my recommendation, but their very, very quick, fast attempt to try and get more covers into that cafe because we said it's just not sufficient. It won't do what it needs to do. This cafe extension would give an additional 12 covers. It would have given an additional 12 covers. Sorry, glitch then. This cafe extension would give an additional 12 covers. It would also, because of the height on the layout, would need to have steps and also a lift up to be able to get into the existing cafe. So that's going to take up space. And this is going to be essentially 12 extra covers for a cafe that already has about 50. They may get a slightly bigger kitchen, slightly better serving hatch, but not much. The changing rooms, they have moved downstairs, but for a facility that's costing £12.5 million, will offer a brine experience, will offer spa on the first floor. They are proposing that is sufficient changing. So these are on the ground floor. You come in through the new hallway, into reception, down into this rear lobby, and this is the male changing and this is the female changing. This brine experience is bigger than our previous design, and I have said to all and sundry, I am really, really proud that SOBs are going to get what they deserve. They have now listened and will include a hoist area, which is important. Councillor George Duffy made that point to me in a town centre advisory panel meeting, and I took that away with me and I made sure that we pushed for it. I hope, although I can't confirm, there will be showers added to make sure that if you've been using the brine experience, you'll be able to have a shower, because leaving salt water on your skin for a longer time when you go upstairs to use salt therapy or steam rooms is not going to be a positive. So hopefully a shower included. But this is what they feel a £12.5 million project can have in terms of changing facilities. Females there, males there. This is my point that I've made, and I've made it in comments on Facebook as well. They've not sought any expertise. I don't think they've means tested this idea at all, because if you've got 8 to 10 people using a brine experience and you've essentially got a bench, or maybe, I don't even know, lockers, 2 showers, that is not the experience. It goes back to the same experience people are going to have with a cafe. And all they need to do is move this cafe to another location and it unlocks the whole site. It really is so plain and obvious, but for people who have been too invested in it and not willing to listen to other people because it questions their ego or questions their own skill set, it causes us some serious problems. So upstairs, again, we have had some influence. Therapy rooms are now of a better size, and they have 2.5 therapy rooms. Therapy rooms are going to generate income for Wychavon Leisure. We're supportive of that. We think that's a real positive. We have no issues. The restaurant is turned into a small bistro, doing about 20 covers. As we've seen on previous communications, it's with a view that it's going to be done by the existing operators. I'm sure they've had influence on the design and the layout of it. And we, as the place board, agreed in our most recent place board meeting. The minutes are available. If you want to read those minutes, you are welcome to read the minutes from that meeting. But we did end up agreeing to a smaller bistro setup. The facilities downstairs are a positive, as much as you could use a brine experience if you were disabled, if you had access issues, if you were injured. You are going to be on a low level to be able to come straight into the brine experience. But if you want to use the facilities upstairs, i.e. the sauna, steam, and they've got cold plunge now added, then you would need to use the staircase, or you need to come back out. You need to come back out and come up this lift, which would bring you out on this first floor. We were almost there. We were almost at a good design. And this is why I still think this is within our grasps, and Droitwich public, we need to make sure that this does get pushed back on, because it's not what you're after. It's not what we asked for. It's not what you were consulted on. And these design decisions have compromised huge amounts of this project. The change in facilities will not be sufficient for a scheme as large as this. The treatment rooms upstairs take up valuable space. The bistro restaurant is sufficient, and we are happy with that. The spa facility upstairs, we feel, would be sufficient. It's bigger than it was going to be on the ground floor, but there is nowhere to get changed upstairs. There is no facility or any space to get changed upstairs, and I'll show you why this becomes an issue. So that is option one. It wasn't going to have this front section here of the cafe. It was going to be option one to here, and that was the one that was going to cost that version there is going to cost 12.328 million. That version there. Option 1 plus, taking our point about the cafe still not being big enough, they've stretched it even longer. So cafe extension in option 1 comes here on the front. This end here where the redundant splash pad is just becomes a summer concession kiosk and part of the splash pad. Now, a concern that came back from our place board is summer concessions kiosk means that in the spring and in the kind of other months when people will be using the park, there'll be no one there. So there'll be no facility. Again, putting more pressure on the cafe that's not big enough already. The fact that it is just a concessions booth kiosk, it's not going to have enough stock to look after people. And from a staffing point of view, we have our concerns that it's unlikely to have the right amount of people in there, the right staffing cover to allow for the busy days that it's needed. It'll be hit and miss at best. Coming down to option 1 plus, well, it's pretty much as you've seen. However, they've just extended the cafe even further. So again, why is the existing operation of a cafe becoming the major driver for this scheme going to cost another £400,000 to extend the cafe twice, to double the width of what that extra bit on the ground floor is going to be, on the low level is going to be? Everything else to remain the same. And that, I dare say, will probably be the one that you've seen today, making it look like they have considered the cafe needs to be bigger, and it will be bigger because of that. This design was only showed to me on Wednesday of last week. It hadn't been put to us until the 11th hour, with the view that they needed to make a decision on Tuesday, which is as I'm doing this today. So rushed through at the end, poorly thought out, a bad design. Now, this document I'm sharing, or this section of the document I'm sharing, was shared with me, as I said, on Wednesday for me and the place board to see. And it was essentially them getting their story, I think, together to say, well, we can't do your option, Matt, because it's going to cost over 14 million. And we haven't budgeted for 12.5. So we've only budgeted for 12.5. So how can we go bigger? It was also, as I'll show you in a second, not designed with our feedback in mind. We'd met with all involved. We told them what we felt would be the best use of the space and how it could work. And so let me show you that design now. And please, apologies for the poor drawing, but this was their attempt to try and make it look like they'd given it a chance. On the ground floor, we support the brine. We want subs to get what they deserve. We support the brine. On the ground floor, however, we do not want the sauna, the plunge, the steam. There is no space for sauna, plunge and steam in that location. There is space for the small changing rooms. Small changing rooms there will mean anyone using the brine can get changed, washed, showered, and use the brine. It's perfect. Small changing rooms, sufficient for the brine experience. Okay, it's not 14 cubicles as we'd see in Nirvana Spa or other spa offerings, but it's sufficient. On a ground floor, it's sufficient. On the first floor, we do not want a relaxed seating area taking up all of this space. The heat experience, as was designed in option 1 and 1 plus, can work on the first floor. This setup here can work on the first floor, and it works in exactly the same location. What is needed, however, is that sufficient changing rooms are installed in the building, in the space upstairs, to allow for people to be able to use the spa, people to be able to relax, and obviously, if they wish to use the bistro. Now, this is more of a spa day experience then. You have the sauna, the steam, and the plunge pool if chosen on this level with you. You have changing facilities sufficient, and these changing facilities have been shown before in previous designs. They were shown in their design when they were going to come through a bistro restaurant to get downstairs. So these changing facilities will fit. And we'd asked for that they went back to this changing facility upstairs. This section would be the spa offering. This section would be the bistro. This would be the changing. You don't have a bistro here, so you can go down the stairs to the brine, or you can come up from the brine. We have our concerns about using the stairs when you're wet. That is something that would need to be really kind of thought through, and safety would need to be considered. But whilst we can't get the spa all on one level to get the right layout and flow, we do end up with the right facility that people will be very, very proud of. So the male and female changing upstairs. Changing rooms here. This remains, the bistro remains, and this becomes the spa. Then on the ground floor, I don't know why it's been drawn over here, but it would be on this ground floor here. The small extension takes place on the front of the cafe as it sits at the moment. That becomes a reception area and a sitting area with steps and a miniature lift up to this location here. The cafe then becomes 3 treatment rooms. It could be 2 and a double. We are thinking that people will come and their spa experience will be on this side. They'll be able to have treatments. And on this side, they'll be able to use the brine by showering either downstairs and changing downstairs, or coming upstairs and using the full spa area. Treatment rooms will generate income, as we've said, for Wychavon Leisure. And the treatment rooms that they've designed here will bring in less money. We want Wychavon Leisure to benefit from this. We want this to be a successful site. We want it to bring people to the area. So 3 treatment rooms take up the space in the cafe. And this again goes back to why they can't just keep extending a cafe that's still not sufficient. The cafe needs to move. The generated income from this project, if it's laid out correctly, will be sufficient to cover the additional expense. We don't think it's going to cost 14.2 million. We think figures are now being plucked out of the air in the 11th hour because the scheme's not being supportive. We want this scheme to work for everyone. 3 treatment rooms generate a good level of income. The right changing facilities means that people will come back. They'll pay for upgraded memberships. They'll have a membership where they can just use the Lido itself. They'll have a membership where they can use brine and Lido, and they'll have a membership where they could use spa, brine and Lido. And this is all money generated for Wychavon Leisure, which we're hugely supportive of. There is a business case for this. The cafe moving to the south end unlocks the whole site. We're told now in this design that the cafe here would not be much bigger than is already offered. We've mapped it. It's this splash pad footprint is 17.4 metres by 12 metres, about 207 square metres. And the existing cafe here is approximately 62 square metres. So this space is available. There is a space for a cafe that's 3 times the size, with the right kitchen, with thoughtfully designed store, with toilet facilities. And think about it. A lot of people using the Lido are in the park down here, and they're going to be using this. From the pool side, you'll be able to use it from this side as well. We've been really, really disappointed that it's got to this. We hoped it never would. We're pleased that Wychavon will share with you their plans. We hope that you'll consider our feedback, and we hope that you, the public, will have given your opinion, and that opinion will be heard. Arguments for local government reorganisation. I feel are insufficient. 11 months, up until November, 11 months, 2025, were taken to design that first one I showed you. A changing room that you have to travel through a bistro restaurant to get down to use the brine facilities and also the spa facilities. It was time wasted there that's caused this problem. A design that's been taken in a different direction from public consultation. You're not getting what you were promised. It's been arranged around the local operators, and it's been arranged around the people that are involved with the delivery. They deliver leisure centres. They don't deliver nighttime economy-led schemes. I'm asking that Wychavon reconsider. I'm asking that they share the costings for scrutiny and that those figures are checked, because this scheme has been stopped in the final days due to overvaluation of items. I get there needs to be contingency. It's not my area of expertise, but there needs to be contingency. But some of these figures have been added on. I'd like to thank you all for watching. This has been a bit of a therapeutic process for me to be able to share our frustration, but to share where we're coming from. And I'll allow you to make your own decision, because we are very, very close to this project. We have been for a long time. And if you as the public think the Wychavon scheme, option 1 or 1 plus, are going to meet the brief of a £12.5 million scheme and deliver for the town, then my position with the Place Board won't change. I've done that because I can't work with a council that won't listen to or would shut me out of meetings when I have a difference of opinion. The Place Board is supposed to be an advisory panel. We've supported on a lot of projects. We've delivered on a lot of projects, but we have a council that won't accept when someone has a different opinion and challenges the opinion made by others. I'm going to leave it there. This will, I hope, get to the right position and get to a project we're all proud and supportive of. We are supportive of the Lido project having investment. We believe safeguarding the future is crucial, but we also feel that we are going to be spending more money for an inferior scheme. And as a taxpayer myself in the local area, as a resident as well, I don't feel that this is completely as it should be. I feel it's been driven down a path that none of us will be proud of. Thank you for your time.